Please check out our sponsors NordVPN for the best in online security. It's the best VPN on the market, and you can try it risk-free now with a 30-day money-back guarantee by visiting nordvpn.com/heartandhand. That's nordvpn.com/heartandhand, and it's risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Hello everyone and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name is David Edgar and as always I am your host on the show, and I am delighted post Old Firm game to welcome to the podcast back again the Sage of Saltcoats, Andy McGowan. Hello Andy, how has your bank holiday weekend been?
My bank holiday has involved soft play, Witherspoons, Greg's Donuts, choo-choo trains. And yes, I did have my daughter with me in case anybody's want to jump in.
I was thinking you were getting a bit old for soft play, and she's a bit young for Wetherspoons, but you know.
Anyway, that's my bank holiday. Depressing.
Bank holiday. Well, depressing is actually an interesting word because yesterday, and we'll come to the game soon, obviously, a fairly low-key Old Firm match, I felt. I've watched it back this morning and it certainly didn't have any of the tempo or drama that we've come to expect from these fixtures, perhaps understandably so. As I say, we'll get into it. But the main talking points seem to have come from after or from out with the pitch afterwards. First of all, Rangers fans unfurled a Tifo in the Copeland stand, which showed a very famous picture of Graham Souness, one that I'm sure every Rangers fan is aware of, which is Graham Souness. He was clay pigeon shooting, so standing with a clay pigeon gun, looking down the barrel of it, and a banner that read at the bottom, "Take aim at the rebel scum." Now, rebel scum clearly is a phrase aimed at Celtic fans. It is a play on words because it was May the 4th, Star Wars Day, and it was clearly a play on words about that. But this being Scotland, of course, then there had to be a stushy about that, and Rangers apologised afterwards for it. Now, there were more serious incidents in my mind, which was things were thrown onto the pitch, which Rangers rightly condemned. There's never any justification or excuse for throwing things at footballers of any team, from any support. But then decided, Andy, that they would go in on this Tifo. The stories, of course, inevitably this morning that police were investigating it. Police are no longer investigating it, we're told, because there was no criminality, which I think anyone could have told you beforehand. There was no criminality involved in it. And it does seem to be another case of nasty words. You're not allowed to say them. You're only to have them said about you, which seems to be a fairly common theme in Scottish football when it comes to us.
I mean, where do you start with this? It's I'm 48, right? I'm fairly sensible. Folk probably expect me to come out and be responsible and say things that, you know, tell people not to do silly things and keep away from the line, if you like. See the balls, right? Let's just make sure that's crystal clear to everybody. The balls getting flung apart are totally out of order. We've had it at Easter Road a number of times.
Somebody's Parkhead in the last game.
Yeah, you're going to have somebody seriously hurt when they're part. I mean, a Buckfast half bottle to the head for distance is not going to be pretty.
And we're not hypocritical about this, right?
No,
when our fans do it, we condemn it. When opposition fans do it, we condemn it. This cannot happen. Scottish football is an increasing problem with this, and it's something that clubs and supporters need to work together to get rid of. And I think everyone is okay with that, and the club were totally right to condemn that. That's when the statement should have stopped.
Yeah. So that's Tifo, right? I'll tell you what I thought yesterday. I seen it unfurling, and I seen the words kind of coming out for the main stand side. We were unfurling the words, and it said "take aim," and I was like, right, take aim, and then it says against that, and I was like, what's coming next? I was seeing the person next to me, Lorraine. I was like, what's coming here? Take aim against. I went, the rebels, Jesus Christ. And then it says rebel scum, and I went, well, that's May the 4th, you know. And I thought, I wonder who signed that off. Then the full thing was seen. We could instantly recognise it as soon as with the clay pigeon gun, which is an iconic picture for Rangers fans. We see it all over social media. It just epitomises what we think of the guy, that machismo and everything else. And I thought that is a magnificent Tifo. I thought they'll not be best pleased because it looks like a gun pointed at them and they'll construe themselves as rebels gun. But, we're in a rivalry, we're in an old firm, we've got a club that we're playing that I've found it pretty hard to say the name Rangers for a wee while now. They've treated us with utter contempt for years and years and years, from the stands to the boardroom to their AGMs. And I thought, who cares? And, if you want to test this out, a rebel scum in the gun, right? Is it illegal? Clearly not, right? I'm no Perry Mason, but I knew it wasn't illegal. Is it in bad taste? Possibly, depending on your perspective and of what end of the ground you're in, right? Is it offensive? Potentially, but I'll tell you what, Davey, it's not offensive if you have never said anything about a banner that says "Know Your Place, Hun Scum," right? It's not offensive if you've never said anything about hanging effigies of Rangers fans and Orangemen for the tiers of Parkhead. It's definitely no
Literally,
offensive.
and this is hanging.
Yeah, definitely not offensive if you never said anything about a massive tifo of a terrorist in a gas mask throwing a petrol bomb, or an adaptation of the IRA, South Armagh IRA's kind of sniper at work sign, which incidentally, a version that found its way out to the front cover of the Celtic News. It's not offensive if you never said anything about riflemen shooting Rangers fans who were depicted as monkeys. And it's definitely not offensive if you never said anything about a eulogy to a terrorist who killed 5 innocent people in a coup de grace. It's not offensive if you sat there and said nothing about a celebration of the resistance. And I've got to understand the resistance is Hamas on October the 8th, 2023, right? So all these things have happened in Scotland in the last, 10 years. It's time and time again. Nothing really gets said. We wake up this morning and Swinney, the First Minister of Scotland, is taken to the airwaves in the print to tell us what he thinks of that banner. Do you know what the last First Minister said about that Hamas protest, demonstration, celebration? I'll tell you what he said. He says, we're a democratic society. People can wave Israeli flags, Palestinian flags, Scottish flags, Union Jacks, all they want. Demonstration of solidarity. There are more important issues than flags being waved. So see, after that, Davey, I'll tell you what I thought after that. I thought, all bets are off. I used to be the guy that used to say, we shouldn't be doing this, we shouldn't be doing that, we should live to our own standards, not take our stands for other people. But the standards are different, and this is a big problem I've got. If we want to get back to a rivalry in a football setting that is a wee bit more sanitised, right? Because you can make an argument for it, right? I'm not denying that. If you want to get back to that, you need to get serious. And I'm talking about the chatting classes that are having a field day today about what was done, what was said, what was thrown in that Tifo, because it is a Tifo at the end of the day. Interesting that we've had a month or whatever it is of the kind of kneecap rhetoric of words are, it's just words and we should be talking about the more serious things.
Speech, yeah.
Freedom of speech, right? People know I'm a freedom of speech absolutist. I don't really care what people say, and if I get offended, that's down to me. There's a fine line with hate speech and so on. This is so far away from the line that's no real. You spoke about the club, and I know I'm on a wee mini rant here, but the club, and I know Patrick Stewart and Stuart Robertson and everybody before them, if the club, in whatever form of continuity you want to call it, have not been addressing or lecturing the SPFL and the police to the line, right? This line that was crossed yesterday, apparently by us, they can't lecture us on the line because we're sitting watching all this guff go on week after week, year after year. Nothing gets said. It's just accepted now. The kind of, if we were to give you a kind of false equivalence of, a Bobby Sands Tifo versus a, I don't know, pick your name of any UVF or UDA or anybody from that kind of, it would just be completely different. Whereas it's a non-event now in Scottish media. I'm fed up with it. I am really, really fed up with it. And if I feel fed up with it, and if I'm annoyed at the club for what they did yesterday, then I know I'm not alone. Because I like to think I'm pretty even-handed, I'm pretty level-headed. I try to put my feet in the shoes of the people at the top of the club. Patrick Stewart, the comms guy, if he had any, and I mean any, influence in what happened just to that statement, They need to come into reality and understand where they are and what environment they're working in. Because I think what they're doing, Davey, in their defence, is that they're working on a corporate basis of that's not acceptable and therefore we need to speak out about it. They either don't know the context or they don't understand the context, and they're acquiescing with the fact that we have become the country's kind of, if you want to call it, moralistic punch bag, right, for standards. Humza Yusuf had the police in headlines about us investigating a false video of singing sectarian, the players singing a sectarian song, which was clearly doctored. This is what we're talking about. It's no serious people. It's not serious about issues, because if they're serious about yesterday's banner type Tifo, then they need to be so much more serious about stuff that's went before. The line's not even close.
Yeah, on this, right? See, on this, the club statement had the phrase "a line was crossed." We acknowledge a line was crossed. Well, as Andy says, you've never told us what the line is, and we've seen all these banners waved at us, various other ones. You know, Aberdeen supporters banner that had two Rangers players' severed heads dripping blood on them. So you can't blame Rangers supporters for thinking that the line was very far, because everything's gone with a comment on it. Secondly, and this is the key thing that they have to realise at Rangers, and they never seem to get their head round it. It isn't about what's on a tifo or what's on a t-shirt. It's about who is waving it and who is wearing it. That's what it is. It comes down to the fact that they don't want us to be able to express ourselves. Their view on it is that they're the goodies and we're the baddies. And therefore, as the goodies, everything they say is justified. And as baddies, we shouldn't be allowed to say anything. You're never going to win with these guys. You're never, ever going to win. They don't want to come round to your point of view, because as far as they're concerned, it's their existence that bothers them. And you're absolutely correct. I agree with everything you said there, that for Rangers to come out after it was a big on goal, they shouldn't have done it. I would hope that today they're realising that they made an error. There was nothing to comment on, as far as I'm concerned. So, and if you're genuinely offended by that, right, football's not sport for you. This is the thing that keeps getting missed. Well, the Celtic fans might have found that offensive. They were supposed to find it offensive. We were trying to upset you. That's the point. That's what football rivalry is about. You are trying to wind up an opposition support. When it becomes a problem is if something illegal is stated on it. Nothing illegal was on that banner. Was it strong? Possibly. Was it in bad taste? Possibly. That's a subjective thing, and that's down to you as an individual to decide. But what you don't get to do is say, I find this objectionable, ergo it should not be allowed, because that is illiberal to the point of utterly silencing anything you don't agree with. And reality doesn't allow that to happen. As for the club going out on it, one, they rushed into it. They shouldn't have. What it did do, and I mean, I saw this on a headline last night on a newspaper site, Andy, where it said Rangers condemn Tifo, and then under it said the club also condemned the throwing of a bottle. What's more serious? But that statement made this story bigger than the actual problem that needs dealt with, and the actual thing that all Rangers fans are going, no, that's right. You know, we are totally in the wrong. The other fans need to accept you can't do this. So it was a balls up from a PR point of view. It was a balls up from what it did to your relationship with the fans. And fans will ask questions about, do you get it? Now, the club might say, oh, we're trying to cover ourselves here. Why? Cover yourselves from what? Yeah, genuinely, a bit of criticism. They're going to find something. How many fucking times do you need this shown to you? It's not about the what, it's the who. They hate Rangers, and therefore they're going to find. And the hypocrisy, as you mentioned there, people, 3 days ago, all free speech, say what you like. No, that I didn't like that. Therefore, I didn't mean that. Obviously, the hypocrisy is rife. People that think it's perfectly fine to call us Huns, who wet their knickers about being called rebel scum. People who, by the way, describe themselves as rebels, being upset at being described as rebel scum, which is quite clearly a Star Wars reference. Everyone could see that. It's a play on words. And it's just this pish that we need to wade through when it comes to Scottish football. The sensible thing for Rangers to do when commented about it is say, okay, it was a bit strong. We'll be speaking with the group in question. But what really I think it showed up, Andy, is what you cannot be responsible as a football club, in my opinion, for individual banners. I get that, right? No problem, small flags.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot allow a full stand-sized Tifo into your ground, then greet about it later. And if you're saying, oh, we didn't know what was on it, well, you should have, right? Yep. That's simple. You should have. And to then come out, I think it's trying to have your cake and eat it. I think it's trying to say, well, we didn't want to upset the supporters by not bringing the Tifo in, but nor are we going to own it. You need to own it. This is that was the fact that it was flown was on you. It's your ground, as they pointed out there in the statement. But yeah, to me, a sensible thing would just be, as far as we're concerned, the banner wasn't illegal. It was an iconic picture of Graham Souness, because that's exactly what Celtic would do. They would not have taken responsibility for this. They would not. And this whole thing about, we hold ourselves to a higher standard. Well, everybody else seems to as well. So look where that's got us. You don't need to be absolutely dismissive of any type of wrong behaviour here. And I don't know any Rangers fan who is, because I go back to the fact that with the bottle, everyone's saying find the person and ban them, get them charged. Everyone is saying that, because that's quite clearly that's something wrong, and not subjectively wrong. It's something that's illegal, right? Not subjectively wrong. There is a measuring stick for this. Does it cross into criminality? Yes, it does. But for the banner, the club should have shut the fuck up, right, and just allowed this to play out. It would have been done inside 2 days. Instead, they poured fuel over it. It'll be done inside 4 days. Don't get me wrong, right? I mean, this is a nothing story. This will go down the same route as Skushgate and kicked over sandcastles and whatnot. All that has come out of this, and this is the point of what I think it was a big error from the club. All you did was piss off your own supporters, give succor to people who hate you, and you gained nothing from this. Nothing. Nobody reading that thing's going to go, oh, well done, Rangers, I've changed my opinion on them as a club. That didn't happen. So it was pointless, it was wrong, and it was a complete and utter waste of time and resources. So I don't think they came out of this well, and I think I'd be pretty sure that there's already going to be some regrets that they did this.
Yeah, and I mean, anybody listening to this, don't for a second think we are condoning something that's dodgy. What we're trying to explain here is that there's degrees of there's the degrees of offence, and it's subjective, you say, Davey, and there's a 10-year, probably more than that, but there's at least 10-year of context here. Because, I mean, the thing about a full stand and then the custodians of the club actually coming out as if, oh, they didn't know about that. That's bad management, right? And it's what I've accused Celtic of time and time again. When their stuff showed up in their ground, I'm like, wait a minute, somebody's let that in. It's probably been made in the ground. You cannot feign ignorance of what was about to unfurl, especially some of the stuff is just... It's the same. It's freedom of speech, but it's no my cup of tea, obviously.
No,
but
I mean, some of the stuff I find vile, right? But I'm a grown-up about it.
Of course.
I'm like, fair enough. But it is this thing. This is what really I think grates with Rangers fans. It's that all of that, totally fine, nothing a word said. Exactly. We do anything at all. And you pointed at something that you're right earlier. Celtic fans are quite happy to fly banners celebrating terrorists. If Rangers did the same, then there would be meltdown and uproar. We wouldn't do it. Right, because we don't worship terrorists. But this is, I think, an ongoing issue. And as I say, I think it was handled badly by Rangers. And I think that they deserve the criticism that they're getting today.
Yeah. Now, if you're being generous, you could say, right, well, you've got a takeover going on. There's aesthetics. I don't think this mob are buying Rangers without knowing that they've got a pretty spicy support and that they're buying into an old firm club and everything that goes with that, and that there's going to be fairly unsavoury tendencies from time to time. If they don't know that, then I'm going to be really worried about their due diligence, right?
Here's the thing, Andy. This is there's a bit of hypocrisy at play here, mate, right? Which is also the fact that, this derby, it's amazing. It's used the word spicy, it's incredible. Oh, the passion, right? All of that stuff. And then something like this comes along and they're all like, but we don't want that either. And yeah, but I think we've said our piece on it, so we'll move on to the game itself.
Good. My face is going a bit pink here. That's good. I'll cool down now.
You cooled down now. Moving on then to the actual match. There wasn't really a lot to talk about. I found this a very low-key, low-tempo affair, to be honest with you. And having watched the match back, I think, both teams, I kind of got the impression, Andy, if you'd said to both teams at 5-12, we'll call this one each, that they might have just shook hands and went home.
I wasn't frightened yesterday, and I wasn't excited. It was a very strange event, and I know it's probably because for the umpteenth season in a row, we've got very little to play for it going into a post-break Old Firm game. Strangely enough, I kind of fancied us, which is bonkers when you think of the season we've had and the recent record. 6 games without a win at home, and I thought, I quite enjoyed it, and it wasn't a great game, David, but perversely, I quite enjoyed it because I thought it was an open game. I thought we competed well. I thought there was a couple of decent performances in there. I know that the entire squad needs gutted, but what I've been looking for over the course of the last few weeks is people to show that actually, I wouldn't mind keeping them, you can make use of them, whatever. So there was all this kind of stuff at play yesterday, but I 1-1. I'd have taken that beforehand. I think Maestas will say, like, just don't get beaten in an Old Firm game. So I'd have probably taken it. But the game itself, there's the usual stuff. But if I had to pick any positive, like major positives, I thought Diamandi did a great game again. He's becoming a big game player. He seems to totally raise his game and get in the zone. Last time at Parkhead, I thought he was excellent the first half hour or so in Bilbao before he gets shunted out left. There's something there, right? Think back to Dundee United game at him with Drew. He was absolutely abject, to the point where he's not going to do. And then you look at him there, and he's got some tremendous energy all around the park, tactically diligent, considering the tactics we're playing, the shape we're playing, and some fantastic footwork and bravery on the ball. So I thought he was a major plus, and I thought Raskin. He's not the finished article, and he's never ever going to be Barry Ferguson in terms of ball quality, but he brings something to our team, and he's becoming a major leader. You can say, look, let's keep him for next season. You can say, right, sell them and get 20 million between the two of them and use it. It's a better problem to have than not. But that is only two things that really stuck out for me yesterday. We didn't learn much else, or did you?
No, I think that Rangers worked hard. In terms of keeping shape, denying space, which meant the Celtic, although they probably ended up over the course of the game dominating the ball, they did it in areas that wouldn't hurt us. And I think that this is why I go into the fact that both seem to accept that Rangers would get into their shape. Celtic had more of the ball and were more dominant. Rangers had, in my opinion, the better chances in the match. Rangers knew that we could hurt them at set pieces and did frequently. Should have scored in the opening minute. Leon Balogun's a great header, great chance actually, and he should put the header down the way and he scores, but he just gets slightly underneath it. And there were a couple of other set pieces, obviously the Raskin one, which was disallowed for offside, no complaints, he was offside. And I think that it settled into that pattern, Celtic having most of the ball, but Rangers happy to let them have it. If you notice, when Carter Vickers had it, Rangers pressed. When Scales had it, because he's not as good on the ball, Rangers were quite happy to allow that. So there wasn't a lot of space there for either team. I think the disappointing thing for me from our point of view was we lacked quality going forward. Barry Ferguson spoke about it after the match, that it was that final ball, that final decision, which has been an issue, incidentally, for Rangers. It's a lack of quality, and that's what lets us down consistently. But yesterday I felt that we had opportunities to break on them and didn't make the most of them.
Yep.
Particularly in the second half, where I thought that we engineered a few turnovers, win the ball back high up the park, and then didn't make the most of them. So I thought that the side that Ferguson had put out was stuffy. There was no width in it deliberately. I think it was to congest the middle, which worked. Celtic didn't have anywhere near the number of chances they would normally have in an Old Firm match. But Czerny wasn't on form, ended up being subbed early. Bajrami was given a more defensive role to sit on McGregor, which worked, but it meant we didn't really have an awful lot going forward. And that is the disappointing thing. But for me, Andy, that's an issue of quality, and it's something we've spoken about before.
I think it's a squad quality thing, because we've kind of flogged Czerny to death. And if you had a more, even if Danilo and Cortez were up to speed to any degree, you could bring them on with half an hour, 25 minutes to go and keep the momentum going, whereas I think we'll lose a bit when Tierney runs out of steam. I think Barry got it right. So this isn't a pitch for Barry to be the manager. That's not what I'm saying, 'cause I don't think it's realistic. My heart would love to see it happen. My head says it's not going to happen, and the track record dictates it shouldn't happen. But he has had a couple of great
I'm with your
tactical.
head on that one.
I just don't think it's going to happen. But I would perversely like to see him with a good team and see what could be achieved. But we're not going to see that. But what I will say is that the likes of Fenerbahce away, Parkhead away, and I thought yesterday he's kind of got his, between him, Dodds, and McCann, because I don't know if I think there's a bit of brains trust between the three of them. I think they've got things pretty much spot on and executed well, because, as you say, Bajrami in from the start was maybe an eyebrow raiser for many because he's just not delivered. But I thought, well, he's actually pretty good. He was good in the League Cup final at that. He's fairly intelligent with the press. He knows what to do. He's a wee bit. He's more diligent. We probably give him credit for that when he's sitting high. Him sitting to McGregor, I thought it worked completely, and I thought that they deliberately gave up the width to Taylor and Ralston, who are limited in terms of ability, and Barron and Diomande just pressed out wide as soon as they got the ball. A lot of work for they two. I thought Barron had a good game as well. So there was positives there. I thought I was doing to Ferguson, his tactics worked well, and with no quality. Well, I'm not saying with no quality. The goal was quality, but you've not got enough of that happening. And this is
Consistent
where,
quality, yeah.
where you can, what they do over the course of the season, because they blew a couple of breaks as well. Let's be honest, they did that, and then the last minute chance that they should have scored both.
Yeah.
But it's easy to say quality, and what does that mean? It just means taking your chances, making the right decisions, no squandering them time and time again. We do it too often.
For me, it's decision making. For me, it is, and so often we make the wrong choice in the final third, and that's the difference makers. That's where you need that. The Rangers goal you spoke about, Cyril Dessers comes in for a lot of criticism. I thought he led the line well yesterday and took his goal with aplomb when it came, and it was a lovely move that Rangers put together from back to front. It's playing quickly. It sounds so simple, but we so often lapse into this extra touch, then the opportunity, the space is closed, so we turn around, or a check, and we turn around and knock it back the way. That was a straightforward thrust, and one touch, one pass. Czerny's step over was lovely to let the ball through to Dessers. Instant control, takes it into a position to get the shot away, and then a fine finish into the corner. It was a lovely bit of play, and it's kind of frustrating because, Rangers scored a goal similar to that Dessers again last week in Paisley. And I would be frustrated if I was Barry Ferguson, because it's like, see what happens when you do that, when you take, a touch out of it, when you move it quicker, you can move it quicker, you're more likely to score goals. And it kind of frustrates me a bit that we see it on occasion, but we don't see it enough.
That's why I like Diomande, playing his head up, looks to get it forward more often than not. I know a lot of folk don't agree with that, but I think it's true. I think he tries to play forward. Bajrami done really, really well to get things going for deep. And then, as you say, the pass for Diomande, the bit of class for Czerny to understand where Dessers were. I thought Dessers did fantastically well. The goal, I thought it's the kind of one that you'd expect. Carter Vickers has dominated him for most of his Old Firm career until the last game and until yesterday, because I think he's been told to up his aggression. He's never going to be a powerhouse holding the ball up. Dessers, we know that, but I think he's just understood that you just need to be that wee bit more physical when you're playing against Carter Vickers and not let it be such a stroll for him. So it was a really good goal, right? And I think Arfield said in the telly something that we'll all agree with. It's why he splits opinion. I would love to say that next year, if a few bob is spent, Dessers becomes a secondary striker, because he'd be a great guy to have coming off the bench if you're needing a goal. He's got attributes, but he's not our first choice number 9. There's no question about it, and he'll go because of that. But in a fanciful world, I would love to have him just as a squad striker you can bring in, and you're going to need strikers that you bring in and do 10, 15 goals from the bench or from playing in the lesser games. It's not going to happen, but is it?
No.
But it was a good goal. Loved it. We should have had a couple more, I've got to be honest. I thought we should have had the game far more comfortable by half time. and it's only natural that they come out with a wee bit more of purpose. And I think a couple of the players had Cherny, for example, had ran dry by 55, 60 minutes.
Mm.
I don't really know his fitness status, and I think he was rested at St Mirren and stuff
He's
like that. He's not
played
been
a
fully
lot
fit,
more
is he?
games this season than he has previously in his career, and I think you can tell.
Nah, he's
I
catching
think
up
he's
now.
looked flat for a couple of weeks.
He's key.
Involved in
He's
the
a key
goal right
man.
enough.
He's
He's
a
a
key
key
man
player,
for
yeah.
us, and
Involved in the
when
goal.
yeah,
That's what he does. The goal we conceded was poor though. Chipped in ball over the top. Does Tav. He was okay yesterday against I thought a fairly flat Maeda, but he got the better of him there. Suter comes across to Clear, doesn't deal with it effectively. It bounces back to Ida, and his shot goes in. Initially ruled out for offside, Maeda, but after a VAR check, he wasn't in the keeper's eye line. And look, I'd love to sit here and say we was robbed, we was cheated, but I would have been raging had that goal been ruled out for us. For me, we had the chance to deal with it. It's a different argument to say whether or not that goal would have been allowed to stand if we'd scored it. That is a different and fair argument. But in terms of the actual goal itself, as soon as I saw the replay, I was like, nah, fair enough.
And if I hadn't seen the Liverpool goal a couple of weeks ago, where I think it was Diaz was in a similar position, I would have been screaming for offside. But that kind of enlightened me to what the actual rules are for offside. And I know people have pointed out, paragraphs and stuff like that, but you don't get that now unless it's absolutely obstructing the goalie, like right in front of them, or stopping them for diving or waiting to dive. So begrudgingly, I have no complaints, but as you say, it is a decision that can sometimes go either way in terms of interpretation. And they probably deserved it at that point. And it was relatively early in the second half, and they'd plenty of time to go in and win the game, as did we. But at that point, I was like, we may have a problem here because we just looked a wee bit, a lot flatter than we had in the first half. As I say, we'd not quite blown ourselves out, but the energy levels were not, and the momentum is not as evident as it was in the first half. So I was kind of worried at that point, I've got to be honest.
Yeah, both sides had kind of one more chance to finish it. Ida had missed a good chance in the first half. And did quite a similar day to Dessers, really. Did fine, scored one, missed one. Dessers had a fresher swipe at one with 10 minutes to go. Then in the final minute, a mix-up in communication. Hamza Egerman takes a throw quickly. Tav is out of position and doesn't react to it. Sets Maeda in on goal, and I must admit, I thought he's going to bury this, but an excellent save by Liam Kelly. And I do think, in all honesty, for what we watched, this was not a classic. This was not a typical thrills and spills Old Firm match. I thought one each was probably a fair score.
Absolutely. And a word on Kelly. He made that save, and he made the save in the first half either. I thought he had a solid game. Again, in an ideal world, he's no first choice for Rangers. He's either second or third choice. But game is due. He's done well in both Old Firm games that he's played this season. And that counts for something. He can hold his head up high. But aye, Miada should have scored. Maeda should have scored. And we got off big time because I think the final whistle went basically as soon as the game restarted after that. See on Egerman in the throw-in, a wee bit too eager. That's where his inexperience shows. This is why, again, this season, the same as we've flogged Cherny to death, we've used, as exciting as he is, we've used him more than we would be if we were a fully functioning football squad department club, because we've got a wee gem there, and he should be able to be bled in and learn his trade without as much of the expectation and pressure that's on him. Because if you think about how we've played him this season, he's really become one of our two first choice strikers. A lot of expectation for a boy that hadn't seen frost this time last year. It's bonkers when you think about it. So he nearly cost us there, and it's something he just needs to. You talk about decision making earlier on. There are a couple of instances where, and I know he can be a man and he backs himself and he likes an early shot. A couple of wee occasions, not just yesterday, but in previous games where he's just taking the wrong decision. If he gets that sorted out, then we've got a major player on our hand, and that will come with experience and getting a wee bit wiser in the head. But again, this is what we look forward to next season, hopefully, is that if we've got a better squad with better players, more senior players, more ready players, guys like him will benefit from that. and Raskin to a degree, although I'm saying he's kind of graduated a Rangers player, it just takes the pressure off them a wee bit. We've got a situation now where we've got a squad where you're looking to the same 4 or 5 players every week. Suter, we've spoken about Suter, good player, great player, but in a real Rangers squad, he'd be third or fourth choice centre half.
I always think we Suter, and it was the same again yesterday. Any time he makes an error, it does seem to lead to a goal. He never seems to get away with it.
That clearance,
which is unlucky, but it
was unlucky,
still frustrating.
He does that. There's a lot of occasions where we just don't get balls cleared out the box. We've seen it before, and where Tavernier's up against Maeda, Maeda's going to get the better of him now and again. That's a fact. You're not going to go a 90 minutes plus game with perfection against a guy with his pace and tenacity, right? So you're right. Tavernier did do absolutely fine yesterday. I thought he actually played him quite well, but go to better him there, and that clearance or non-clearance for Suter was. It's the kind of thing he does, and you're like, go to be better there. So that's what I'm saying, David. You've got Igaman, you've got Tav to a degree, you've got Suter, guys like Liam Kelly coming in. You're relying on these people to be really, really good week in, week out, and it's an unrealistic ask. And then we wonder why over the course of a season we've floundered badly. We've got as much a squad issue as a first 11 issue as far as I'm concerned, and I just hope that the guys that are coming in for the 49ers or Cavanagh's team, that we spoke about this privately, David, that they look at this and think, do you know what? If we're spending this much buying the club, why don't we just make sure that we give it a real good go from day one? And I know they'll be canny about it, and I know they're not going to come in and make statement signings, and I know they're going to go into the market hiding their cards at their chest, but they must know that a good wee bump of transfer activity with better players than we've been able to afford, because we've been working in that twilight zone, Davey, between 3 and 6 million, right? That was an absolute ceiling, but we've been working in this 3-4 million spot, and there's no guarantees with that. It's just such a hard area to get right, because playing for Rangers is a big ask, and 3 or 4 million is not a lot of money nowadays, and we're buying these players and we're not getting anywhere near what we need. See Celtic, they're actually, for all we kind of laud their transfer activity, they've had a lot of that as well, buying players in that price range that just don't work. The difference is that they've had other players that have been able to breathe and become good over a season or two, like Riley, and I hope that we just get a wee bit of experienced, ready-made players in that gives other players a breathing space to develop and become Rangers players on top of the Rangers players that are already there.
Yeah, I think that's essential. I think that they definitely need an influx of quality, ready-made, that can arrive, and not a guy who's going to be good in 2-3 years. You still sign those when they come up. You need to keep the pipeline going, but we need to sign guys who can come in and go in and make a difference in the first year. I think we need a spine sorted. I would be looking right up that from goalkeeper through to number 9, and that we need to have a much stronger spine in there. I think you can work off that, around that, if you've got that, and I don't think we've had that for a number of seasons, and it has cost us. Right then, folks, that will do us for this week here on Heart and Hand. Cammy will be here with you later in the week to preview the Aberdeen match taking place at the weekend, and I'll be back next Monday to discuss it. For a lot more coverage of yesterday's game and everything that has happened, then go to patreon.com/Heart and Hand, where from just £2 per month, you can hear everything that's going on with Rangers, especially with a busy summer coming up. Andy, a pleasure as always.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it is always fun. And thanks to Mike Lee and Paul Myers, our producers. Till I speak to you again, folks, have a good week. See you then. Bye-bye.